Hey guys, welcome to another episode of As Told by Ari. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode and staying tuned. I took a brief hiatus for Welcome Week. I was one of two directors to bring in the class of 2022, and as you can imagine, for Penn State, any Penn State, that was an absolutely insane situation. We had amazing leaders, we had amazing guides, and everyone in between that helped us move in the insanely large class of 2022. You are an obscene, amazing help to me, and I could not have thanked you enough. And if I haven't thanked you enough, I thank you again. That being said, before I roll into the episode this week, I would like you guys to hit the subscribe button. Tell your friends about As Told by Ari. Tell your family members. Everything is usually pretty PG on here, except the occasional minor one cuss word or two slipping out based. Sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, it can be a little too passionate, and sometimes it just slips out. But regardless, please tell everyone to come and subscribe and to listen and to be a part of the discussion, because that's what the channel's for. As Told by Ari is definitely a means of keeping perspective alive and, allowing different ideas to hit the scene about different issues and hashtags and various societal means. That's literally what the channel's for, just to get as many ideas and as many perspectives out into the world as we can. And this is my way of trying to invite as many people to talk about it as they can. So yeah, that being said, we're gonna dive into this week's theme, this week's episode idea, I guess. And we'll be talking about culture shock. For those of you who don't know, classes are starting pretty soon for a lot of universities and colleges around the world. If you already go to Penn State, they've already started for you. We've already been in our Hell Week so far. Sorry, Silly Week. Sorry. But yeah, culture shock is basically this intense phenomenon, really, that can happen when, someone who has not really experienced too much to life enters an entirely new scene, an entirely new situation, really, and there are various new things that they come across. Ideologies, people, religions, cultures, languages. Those are 5 of the main ones, but there are literally hundreds of new things that can attribute to culture shock. And culture shock has a way of making people feel either very overwhelmed, or it can even make them feel as though, there's a sense of missing out, almost. FOMO, if you will, fear of missing out. And, when it comes to culture shock, there's various ways that it can play out. Most people won't even recognize it as culture shock necessarily. But usually how the ways will go is, first step is everyone's really excited and everyone's really happy and, oh my gosh, all these new things are happening. Oh my goodness, what do I do? Next step is, it's 2 months down the road and they're sick of not having things, the way that they're used to having things. So there can be a depressing phase to culture shock. There could be a phase where you're genuinely homesick and really homesick. I've definitely seen culture shock, have a way of making my friends who were international definitely stay home. They were here for a semester and they were like, this is not what I'm used to and this is not what I want, so I'm going home. There are various ways culture shock can play out. They could stay in their room and only eat, the food that they brought from home, which, could be a serious health issue, but we can dive into that in a second. But yeah, that's the second phase. Usually there's a depressive phase, and then third phase, hopefully, they have kind of evened out, they kind of like their new surroundings. They're going to enjoy the new things that they see. While, yes, they might be a little homesick here or there, but, it's not so bad where they don't feel as though they should continue on the journey that they're on. And that's just usually how culture shock goes. I know going to Penn State Barron, our international student population is sky high. Okay, so we have students who I know for a fact have probably lived in Erie their whole lives, or, another really small town, and have not really experienced people of color, probably haven't experienced any other religion other than, Catholicism or Protestantism. I know a lot of people who probably haven't really experienced any other type of food other than, United States food, or, Mexican American food or Chinese American food. But culture shock can come in many different forms. And, I don't want anyone to think that it's just, culture shock is just international students, or it's just students who might live in U.S. territories, or, culture shock can happen even for students who are from here. It's not necessarily I would even say that culture shock isn't necessarily even a lack of diversity. I would say it's more of a lack of perspective. And, that's of no fault to to whoever's experiencing culture shock. It's not our fault most of the time when we are products of our environment. However, being in college, coming to college, this is your chance to break out of what you have only known in your backyard. And that is exactly why I wanted to focus on culture shock for this episode, because that is actually something I've been seeing a lot of as we moved new students in, as we've, helped students and families adjust to the new lives that they have signed up for. And it's always very interesting to see students who have grown up here versus students who haven't always grown up here. And to see the difference in the exchange of perspective is always, I'll say interesting, for lack of a better term. I will say interesting. And I only say interesting because, again, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's good. And I guess the main things that I want to focus on when it comes to culture shock, just 3 little tidbits of advice, I should say, that I would like to give. That, I gave a lot of new students during their convocation speeches. I first and foremost want to say that culture shock does not last forever. You're not always going to be the new kid. You're not always going to feel brand new, and you're not always going to feel like there's something you don't know. So, culture shock in itself, once you take yourself out of the bubble that you don't know anything, you are able to vastly open your mind up to not only different cultures and different types of people, but you're open to different food, you're open to different languages, you're open to different music, you're open to very different ways of life that, you might have even had some negative preconceived notions before. But if you can get over the idea that you don't know anything, then you'll be fine. That segues into my second part of advice. You're always going to know nothing. I know that sounds kind of like an oxymoron, but you're always going to not know something, if that makes sense. So, coming into a new college scene, when you probably don't know a lot of the people, you probably don't know a lot of what's going on. That's okay, because being human beings, it's our job to learn every day anyway. So, for those of you that are experiencing culture shock on a large scale, but you're not really sure how to fix this never-ending feeling of I'm going to say stupidity, because a lot of us can feel stupid for not knowing stuff. You're not stupid. You just don't know certain things, and that's totally fine to not know stuff. That's why we're in college. You're going to learn everything that you can, as long as you make it your business to learn everything you can. So if there's a group of students that you know nothing about, I guarantee there's a club for it. I guarantee there's an organization for it. I guarantee there's somebody in that group that you can talk to have some of those preconceived notions washed away. Thirdly, third piece of advice, make yourself available. That's like one of the biggest things that college students have to get around. We are 100% in control of our schedule when we get to college. That's just a freedom that we have here. It's awesome and it's amazing, but at the same time, it can be frightening. Make yourself available to know more, to want to know more, to get to know more. You are now entering higher education, people. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. You are coming across means and communication systems and communication skills that people who haven't gone to college might not necessarily have. You are going to be around an entirely different group of people that people who didn't go to college won't necessarily have. And, while culture shock can happen in, workplaces, it can happen on travels, it can happen anywhere really. College is the best place to meet that culture shock and actually look it in the face and be like, you're really not that scary. It's more of just an acknowledgement that we don't necessarily know everything that we think we know. And, a lot of times culture shock can be looked at as negative, but it's only as negative as we allow it to be. Again, keeping in mind that there's always going to be something that we don't know. Your culture shock could actually be that could be your eye-opening perspective as to the idea that you don't know everything that you think you know. And coming to college, allow yourself to meet everybody you can, because I promise you, everybody you meet will teach you something new. Every single person you meet will teach you something new. And if you can live by that knowledge, if you can live by that idea, then culture shock becomes nothing more than your acknowledgement of a lack of perspective. And that doesn't make you a bad person. That doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't make you terrible. It simply means that up until this point in your life, you hadn't been able to experience something this new, this eye-opening, this life-changing, and there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong, the only time that there will be something wrong with it is if you don't take the opportunity to use it, and you don't take the opportunity to make yourself better or to make your campus better, because that's why we're all here. So, I really want to keep this segment as short as I can, because I want people to actually, kind of explore this one on their own a little bit, because this one is as open-ended. This episode is as open-ended as the subject is. There's no one way to deal with culture shock. There's no one way to look at it. There's no one way to experience it. It is simply, I feel, a lack of universal perspective. And it is our jobs as human beings to make our human experiences as collective as they can be. So, I know it's your first week. Get accustomed to what you can. First things first, get your class schedule in order. That's why you're here. Get your class schedule in order. And then once your class schedule's in order, look into the clubs that you want to see. Look into the organizations that you want. See if there aren't any clubs or organizations for things that you like, make one. Make your own, make your own groups. In college, we have the ability to have as many means as we want. And, whether you go to a liberal arts college, you go to a STEM college, you go to a trade school, you go to anywhere, a community college, 2-year, 4-year, anything. Culture shock is not going to be something that you can avoid. So it is better to live in that moment of sometimes dysphoria, but the euphoria that is the new surroundings that you're in. So, don't hold yourself back, and don't allow yourself to fall into a place of hiding when there's a whole world out there for you to learn. There's a whole world out there for you to get to know. And, there's a whole world out there for you to make special, because that's what you're going to do. That's what everyone's going to do. So at the end of the day, allow this feeling of you might be freaked out. Allow this feeling of utter fear, really, but this fear to be excitement. Make culture shock your bitch, really. Just take it as you can. And, along the way, you'll meet some of the best people you've ever met. Along the way, you're going to meet some of the people that you wish you never would have crossed paths with. But that is all part of the human experience. And the more that we can expand our perspective, the more that we can expand our ideas of what human beings are, the more this world can become a better place for everybody. And I mean that. The more peace that we'll be able to see, the more love we can all share. It all comes from the idea that we think we know everything and we don't. So all I'm saying is take this week as you will. But above all else, put genuine curiosity into it, and, follow your curiosities. Don't be afraid of them. Don't feel stupid by them, and don't let them hold you back, because this is the only time of your life where you'll actually have the full freedom to experiment and expand your mind as much as you want to. So with that being said, guys, tune in to next week's episode of As Told by Ari. I'm honestly going to leave the comments and the mentions up to you guys. I would love for you guys to reach out and let me know what you want to talk about, what you want to hear more of, and what you think will honestly just make this better. My channel, all of it. So subscribe to As Told by Ari. You can reach me on Twitter at HalleBerry_2. You can reach me on Instagram at Ari Fonts. That's AARYFONTES. Yeah, I'm not going to give out my phone number because that would be kind of creepy. And I'm pretty sure my email is on the page somewhere. So that being said, hit me up, guys. Let me know what you think. I loved seeing you guys. Thanks for coming back, and I will see you again next week.